Alright, so in the Socratic seminar on the Handmaid's Tale, we got a question number 2 of what are the selections of details that describe the setting? And what mood does the setting create? Well, when I was reading the article, I highlighted the points where they were, the place where they were at, and it's in the old gymnasium. And what I see is like in the video, like it showed where it's like nothing but like you can't even like talk to the girls around you. They can't talk to the girls around them and stuff like that. I think the mood of that is like loneliness because they have no one to talk to, or like they have fear to go talk because they're afraid they're gonna get punished. And that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines, the alone part, you know, like where it talks about how they don't have anything to hurt themselves. Nothing. I mean, all the things that they could hurt themselves with, they're all took away. And that's a pretty lonely place if everybody there wants to kill themselves. Like, that's got to be a lonely place.
Well, like, when I was looking at all of the details that I highlighted, it was like, it's just full of, like, cots and stuff. And the way I think of it, it's, like, kind of like an invasion of privacy. And, like, I really like how they described it as oppression. Because that's really, like, I feel like that's a really good word to describe it. Because, like, the barbed wire fence around there, and then, like, how, you know, they can't talk to each other and stuff.
Yeah, and with that point, I highlighted something that says, semi-darkness, we could stretch out our arms when the aunts weren't looking and touch each other's hands across the space. Like, I guess they felt really lonely if, you know, you wanted to actually touch somebody. And I think that's a horrible way to live because you know, personally, I like to, you know, hug my friends and I talk a lot with my hands, so I will end up touching like her like right now. And I just feel like that's like extreme.
Yeah, like you can tell that it's like really lonely by the things that they notice. Like in everyday life, you wouldn't notice some of the things that they notice throughout the chapter because like it says like all the littlest things that you would never think about. It just kind of shows what is really all taken away from them.
Yeah, like there's a part in there's a part like where she's talking about how like it's the little things that she holds on to and like sunlight and flowers and stuff like that, and you see that a lot, and she's just like, oh well, she holds on to that and just small things like that, and that's like what helps her like keep living, like keep moving on, like it's what she holds on to let herself know that hey, I'm alive, I'm okay, it'll be okay, like eventually or something.
Just look for the
sense of
best
hope.
in things.
So it's kind of like her constant, like it was back then, like back when things were still normal, and I mean the flowers still grow and there's still sun, so if she still has that, then she can still survive.
You have to think about like, what if whenever they die, that's all gone? You know, it'll be just normality for them to live this way, and to get to that point, you know, like her daughter who was, should be 8 now. You know, would she think that's normal, or no?
Because she was raised that way.
She was raised like that.
Like, did you ever remember a time where like they didn't have handmaids or stuff like that?
No, because I mean, at 3 years old, I don't think I remember anything at 3 years old, to be honest.
And like it's all very structured, like it's very very rigid how you do things. So like does that make it to where if you deviate at all it's like you get punished, or is it like a sort of like 3 chances sort of thing, you know? Because it's just so rigid. I feel like it'd be really hard to just transition that fast. Like I know they have the center where they rehabilitate them and everything, but I mean it's a lot harder than that, you know, when you're 30 years old going from something, you know, normal to something so extreme.
I think the settings like it puts like a really uneasy mood on you because like it's like in a place where like no one trusts anybody. Like it says the lights were turned down but never out. So like they didn't want them to run, and they didn't even trust the women guarding the other women with guns.
That's true.
It's because they'd be jealous of the handmaids. They don't want them to have anything like to harm them. because they are put in a position where they don't get to have their children. They don't get to be held as important as them.
Yeah.
So instead of saying that it's lonely, like the mood is lonely, I guess it would be more like how Ethan was saying that it's like unsettled, you know.
Kind of worried all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like that's a good point because like when I read it, like I feel like really unsettled, like not just like too angry about it because you know I recognize that you know it's not real, it is dystopian, but like I'm still unsettled that this is like kind of something that I mean the world is like
Could be related.
yeah like we're
Yeah.
on the edge of it sort of because
Everything in this book is happening. It's just not all together. Like there's little pieces all around the world of all this stuff happening, but this is all just like a concentration of it, and it just like makes it that much worse instead of it just being
We go
one
from
little
fiction
thing.
novel to a real non-fiction novel. What we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, she said that she didn't put any information that had not happened. And you think about that, and that's kind of crazy because you put all that together, that's what you get.
It's like a
This is what you get.
Yeah, and like kind of like what Colin was saying, how it was like a lot of, and Bridget, like they said it was a lot of things that had already happened and stuff. Like the article that we read in class was saying that men in China were like their fertility rate for them to produce was like going down, like they weren't being as fertile. And like in the book, like the doctor makes a note where he says, oh, you know, older men, you know, they have like a less chance of reproducing or like giving off like a offspring because you know they just can't anymore because they're just too old. And then he says that word like he's like, oh, sterile, and she's just like, oh my gosh, you know, you just said a word that we're not supposed to say here. But like, you know, you think about that, and he's actually insinuating that it's the men that can't have kids, not women. Like the women aren't the ones that are being fertile; it's the men that can't give off kids.
like what does the narrative voice like how does Offred being the narrator like how does that affect the social commentary that's being made? I think in the article Haunted by the Handmaid's Tale it made a good point, like even the first sentence it says some books haunt the reader, others haunt the writer, and I'm pretty sure at Wood she felt like a really strong feeling about this, and when you read it you feel like wow, this is something like scary, you know, as we said it's like an unsettled setting, like how it is.
Yeah, like and to be on your point, there's something that says that the Handmaid's Tale has become so like impactful to everyone that it says like sometimes people say phrases like something out of the Handmaid's Tale, and here comes the Handmaid's Tale, and it has even been expelled from high schools and
It's kind of like
reading
Fahrenheit
it.
451. Get rid of them.
I think it's commenting on like some people's opinions on like a woman's purpose, and maybe not just a woman. It's kind of like the sort of like the social standing in societies having to do with monetary value.
Like class or caste system.
I think seeing it through Alfred instead of like, you know, one of the higher up people gives it more like a personal feel. Because I noticed like when Alfred talks about stuff, it's weird, but she doesn't make it sound weird. She thinks it's just like something that just happens every day. And so like just her showing it through someone who has to deal with that every single day, instead of like someone like say like in the future that just like saw this happen was just like, oh, this is horrible, instead of her just being like, yeah, this is what happens, you know what I mean? Like it just makes it more personal.
Just chill about it.
Yeah,
For real.
it's normal to her or something. Maybe it's just
Also is like relatable because she can have children, and in our society we can still have children. So we do have like the same kind of voice that she has, where she wants to have the choice on whether she can have a kid or not, like the rest of the handmaids, and we still have that. So it does give us more of a connection level with the handmaids than the other people that can't have kids and that like just get treated like really bad.
And I kind of feel like the way it impacts us.
so much is like the way it does it is kind of in part because this could still happen.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is a possible thing. Like, I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but it's still kind of like it could still happen. Like, it could happen in the near future. I mean, like the choices that we're making now could just be leading to it, like right now, and like just to kind of be a woman and like to think about that, like getting that choice taken away from you is kind of like scary.
Makes it more personal because you can actually think about it from your standpoint.
I mean, but even the guys, like the lower class men are treated not as equals. You would think that in this, it would be the men like upperclassmen and the women downward class, but like it's not like that. In one of the articles, I don't know which one it was, but it was like she tried to make it into a triangle to where, you know, they're both at the top, but then they have, you know, the woman, the men on the same line, but yet different duties, I guess you'd say. Like women are respected because of being able to reproduce, you know, the children, and then the men, you know, doing other higher things.
Yeah. And like you said, like they're being respected for that. I guess that's what you would kind of call it. Like they're in a better place than if they couldn't like have kids or they go to the toxic waste place. But like they really aren't treating them good in the situation that they're in. They're trying to reproduce kids. Why would they treat them like that? Because I mean, if you're trying to reproduce kids, you have to be healthy, and they're keeping everything away from them and like
It's like they're
torturing them.
respected, but they're looked down upon at the same
Yeah.
time.
And
It's like, why are you doing that?
Like they're the upper of the lower class, basically.
I know someone made a comment about, I'm not sure if it was anyone in this group, but someone made a comment about how the men and the women in the lower class, like not the commanders or their wives or anything, but like the lower class, they actually have more freedom than the ones above it because they can still do stuff. But like they don't, like those Econo wives and stuff, they don't have to be, you know, handmaids, but like they also aren't held to the same standards the wives are of the commanders, so they get to still go to market and all that, so they get to do all that stuff and get that freedom even though they're not in the higher class.
And yet they're still higher than the econo wives and stuff. But is it like just would it just be like was it you that said that the men like in lower class, like they're like not treated as equally as like maybe men in like the upper class, like the commander, he's, you know, he has several handmaids, and so would it just be like econo wise, or would there be like such a like an econo husband? Like I guess is what I'm trying to say, like, you know, like they're not treated as equal either.
There will be a meeting in about 5 minutes in the lecture hall. Report to the lecture hall so that you can pick up your information packet. Thank you.
I also thought that on one of like on the whole narrative voice, she made it sound again like what Michael said, loneliness, because on one she said we yearn for the future, and there's another one where they learn how to lip read and then say their names and all that.
You know, you think about the handmaids, the only touch they're ever gonna know from now on is a touch from someone they don't even know. I mean, that's awful.
It could also be nostalgic though, because like she talks about remembering certain things about like other things that she yearned from like before, and the way she used to be able to touch and things that she used to do. Like really, what you said about how she just hangs on to like the hope from her past stuff that she knows that she can still have today, and it's such a small amount. So I guess it kind of lonely, nostalgic.
So it makes you think, like, if she has hope, so how will this story end, you know?
Yeah.
Will they always be there, or will they go back to the life that they lived? Like, another thing that, like, on the social commentary is, like, even though they're sort of oppressed, there's always that feeling of wanting to rebel. Because, like, I think as humans, we're just kind of, like, born with that.
Rebellion.
Yeah, like, we don't want to conform to something that we think is unjust, so we have that just feeling like, oh, hey, this isn't right. I'm not gonna do this, you know. And like when it says that in the first chapter, something could be exchanged. We thought some deal made, some trade off. We still had our bodies. That was our fantasy. Like I feel like that's that rebellion. Like they still feel like I'm not gonna do this. I still have a choice, you know.
Yeah, even just the little things like we learned to lip read, we learned to whisper with almost without sound, and stretch out our arms, and when the ants aren't looking, like that's still kind of. I mean, they specifically said not to do that. They're still trying, so it's kind of still rebellion.
Also, whenever she's walking out and she's trying to turn on the guard, it's like she's doing it because she can, even though she's not supposed to.
Yeah, she
gives her
says
the feeling
she has
of
that power over him.
Yeah.
Because she has the power because she's a woman. Like, she still has her, I guess, her feminine power where she's like, oh, even though, you know, technically I belong to this man, you know, you don't have a woman yet, so I can use that against you, that I'm a woman and you don't know what it's like to be a woman, to be with a woman. And, like, she uses that against him. Like, to, like, as Issa said, to, like, turn him on or something.
Then like going back to where like they feel like they can have hope and stuff. Like in chapter 3 it says where she talks about her room. She called it her room. And she got so like astonished by her like feeling that way because they kind of don't like they're in this place where they feel like they're going to be there forever, but they want to have that hope too. And just her saying that that's her room, that's like she doesn't want to get like used to it, you know.
Yeah.
It's sort of like saying I'm not going to be here forever, so I might as well not name it. Like when you're sort of like when you foster like a puppy or something, or you know, and it's like or like when your dog has puppies and your mom tells you, hey, don't name them because we're not keeping them. You know, it's sort of
They
like
don't want to
Yeah.
know that they're going to be there forever, so they're trying to like play it off like they're not.
Kelsey made a really good point earlier about how like how it changed so fast, and I think it makes like a social commentary on how fast everything can change. Because like if you think about it, all it was that happened was just like some like super religious group did a rebellion and took over the entire country, and that just changed the whole world in just that one little action. And so it's just like a commentary on like how like nothing's like certain, I guess.
Yeah. Like, and like even in one of the articles that we were reading, the author of the Atwood of the Handmaid's Tale, one of her most famous questions that she was asked was like, is it anti-religion? She's like, no, it's not anti-religion, it's just like using religion as a front for tyranny, so like we're using it for evil. And that kind of goes back to like what Ethan's saying, like a religious group, like it rises up and like it takes over. So that's kind of what she's showing her, that like even today, like we have religious groups that think in like real life in the world, like Islamic, you know, places, and they believe like, oh, if you don't worship or if you don't do what we say or if you don't dress like this certain way, or you know, they use that against like women and even men too. And that's real, like that's a real, like, I guess, theocracy, like, and it ties back to it.
And see, they use religion to make everything look good, like everything's okay, just to cover up all the bad.
Yeah.
And like, I know like, another thing that ties into what they're doing today is like how they pick and choose what they want to represent the Bible. And I know, like, someone said something about they only use the Old Testament, it looked like.
Yeah.
Because that's how they picked and choose, because like the stuff about a woman's place and all that is mostly in the Old Testament. So they'd pick and choose to what suited their purposes and then just be like, oh, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Only what would benefit them, they took from it and made that try to help look good.
That's what they do.
Because mostly they'll supposedly try to use the Bible to like for religious methods, but what they'll do is let's say get a verse in the Bible, but to make them look good, they reword it where it's not really exactly the way it's in the Bible.
Yeah.
They're trying to supposedly trying to make it sound like they know very much the Bible, but they really don't, maybe. And they're like rewarding it. So like,
The questions in that one article, it also asks, is this feminism? But Bridget said that in the book, it talks about men as well, you know, and
she knew it was going to cause controversy, and because when she was writing this book, she took a while to like go back to it, and then halfway through the book, she changed the title. And it says on this article, it says, "I lose my nerve or think instead of the horrors of publication and what I will be accused of in reviews." And she was. This like this book and how it was brought out, it brought out like so many comments and so many questions, you know.
It used to be titled Offer It, but now it's called The Handmaid's Tale. So it basically just didn't affect one, it affected more than one. So
Yes.
how did it go from one person to more than one? You know? And I don't know, like, because Atwood first said that it was called Offer It, a story of one, but then it led to all of a sudden into like thousands of more. I don't know.
Because like it's not just about Offred, like it's not just Offred's story, even though she is the one telling it, like she's telling you what's happening and everything, but it's not just it's not just her story.
Just the one girl involved. The bigger picture would be like that they're all involved, and it's wrong on all of them that they're being treated that way.
Yeah, and go back to what Marisol said about the whole controversy thing and everything. It says here on the article that when the book came out in the UK, they were in no mood for like this situation to repeat, because they had gone through what is called the Oliver Cromwell moment, and then the reaction of the U.S. was dismissive, even though a New York Times writer said, "How long do we have? Like, how long do we got?" Like, most of the countries can see, you know, it could actually happen.
Yeah, where it's coming from.
And where it's coming from, yeah.